I think we can begin. We have about 46 participants, or should we wait, Anuranjan?
No, Jonathan, I think we should go. You can start.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today, the 24th of October, marks the United Nations Day, and this would be the 80th anniversary of the entry into force of the UN Charter. The United Nations was founded with an articulated mission of maintaining international peace and security and to foster international cooperation. It began with 50 member states in 1945, and now it has 193 member states and 2 observer parties. In the span of 80 years, United Nations have branched into various arms, specialized agencies, and paved the pathways for environmental conventions as well. We at the Wildlife Institute of India, Category 2 Center for World Natural Heritage Management and Training for the Asia Pacific region function under the auspices of UNESCO, a specialized agency under the United Nations. With this note, I call upon Dr. R. Suresh Kumar, Senior Scientist and Nodal Officer, WIC2C, Wildlife Institute of India, for the opening address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jonathan, and it's wonderful to connect with so many of the people attending this webinar. So a very warm welcome to everyone, and we are rather gathered here, as Jonathan mentioned, that this is the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, and under the powerful theme that is building our future together. And it's very nice to see that youth and for change, and I love these words. And there's so much to do, and there's so many stories, inspiring stories. So yes, so it's very, very important that we are gathered here for this webinar. And this theme reminds us of the urgent need for strengthening multilateral cooperation and collective action, especially at a time when the world today is quite dynamic, and it's changing, and there's a lot of challenges facing us. So it's very important that we strengthen these through such webinars and through concerted actions. So, as you all know, within the UN system, there are many environmental treaties, all working for the conservation of species, landscapes, wonderful, areas around the world. And so, through these environmental treaties, it brings us together. And one such environmental treaty which stands unique is the World Heritage Convention, and which works towards the protection of cultural as well as the natural heritage that contributes very, very significantly to conserving these spaces and these important areas. So at WIC2C, we are proud to contribute to this mission, and we have been conducting several such programs and to capacity building programs, and we engage with a wide spectrum of stakeholders who are natural park managers, tourism practitioners, students, and heritage professionals and local communities across World Heritage sites. So today's session places a special spotlight on youth, and who are not only key stakeholders but also powerful agents of change. So by equipping young people, many of you who are here, with the right kind of information, knowledge, networks, and opportunities to participate in heritage conservation, we can definitely do much better, and definitely we can bring about this change. So we are committed to safeguarding our planet through nurturing young minds to take on this cause of conservation at a definitely at a different at a higher level, and with just 5 years left for achieving this ambitious goal of Agenda 2030, the time for accelerated action is now. So youth have the creativity, the energy, and which we understand better, that we believe that this change that we are looking for can be brought out much more effectively and at the pace at which we require. So that sets the tone or the theme of this meeting. And so we are honored to host this webinar and look forward to hearing inspiring stories and insights from the three speakers who have been actively working to protect our heritage and environment. So let's use this space to learn, connect, and empower one another. And I very much look forward to hearing your comments in the chat box. And so thank you once again for many of you making it to attend this very, very important webinar. So thank you very much. Over to you,
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Suresh. And yes, I hope this webinar will be fruitful in inspiring a lot of young minds into sustainable action. Now, I'll go into a little bit of context setting from my end. So I'm just sharing my screen. I hope my screen is visible. Is it in the PowerPoint mode now?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. So I begin with telling about the United Nations. A bit of recap. It came into force in 1945, works on the peace, security, and international cooperation, now with 193 member states and 2 observer parties as well. And United Nations have branched out into various autonomous bodies, subsidiaries, and specialized agencies. Now, important framework in the United Nations, the Agenda 2030, which was adopted in 2015 by all the member states. And this provides a blueprint for the peace and prosperity for the people and planet. At the heart is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and this has been broadened into 169 targets as well. These Sustainable Development Goals make the framework to drive sustainable action in all of the fields. So, from life below water, life on land, climate action, all these causes have been driving, and the Sustainable Development Goals provide the framework for it. Now, coming into another United Nations based convention, the UNESCO World Heritage Convention. This was adopted by UNESCO in 1972, and it is created to protect the world's natural and cultural treasures. This convention is unique in its consideration to both cultural and natural sites in one document. As you can see, the representation of cultural sites may be a bit more than the natural sites currently in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list. So overall, in the world, there are 1,248 properties, 972 of them are cultural, and 235 of them natural. Now, this is where the Wildlife Institute of India Category 2 Center comes in. This was also established in 2015, and we are dedicated exclusively to natural heritage, serving countries across Asia and Pacific. And we promote international cooperation on world natural heritage and align with UNESCO's mission and objectives. So to balance the natural and cultural heritage sites is one of the objectives we follow for the implementation of World Heritage Convention. And we predominantly focus on the capacity building. We impart trainings and forges collaboration by integrating WAI's expertise with the global partners across. So site management, policy planning, heritage interpretation, nature culture linkages are the features we focus in our trainings. Now, coming to the youth engagements of World Heritage Convention, we host a World Heritage Young Professionals Forum every year during the World Heritage Committee sessions. Now, this is a peer-to-peer learning platform that the World Heritage Convention hosts. The UNESCO, in a broad sense, also hosts the GYC Global Youth Community, which is also a youth-run platform for networking. The young changemakers' works are more highlighted in this platform. Now, with this, I'll open the segment for our speakers from various conventions affiliated to the United Nations. So first, I'll call upon Mr. Harveet Singh Purawal. Harveet is a British Indian environmental advocate and a biology student at Oxford University, researching in environmental policy. He is passionate about synergistic action for tackling the interlinked biodiversity and climate crisis. With lived experience of the impacts of nature and climate crisis, and as policy lead for YOUNGO Nature Working Group, Harveet advocates for meaning and inclusive climate governance through intergenerational equity to create climate policies that protect both the planet and people as part of a just transition that empowers young people. Over to you, Harveet.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to see everyone here. I'll just share my screen. Give me 1 minute. Can everyone see the screen? Oh. Can people see it? I can't see people, so like, feel free to talk. Okay, I'm going to assume people can see it. So hello, everyone.
You can see it, yes, you can go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey. I'm the policy lead for YOUNGO's Nature Working Group. And sort of like what we're going to be doing is just, I'll be discussing what is YOUNGO, what do we do in the Nature Working Group, especially in the lead up to COPs, which you'll hear a lot about with GYBN and UNCCD. And then also like, what are we doing currently and in the lead up to COP30 and how you can get involved. So YOUNGO is essentially the official youth and child constituency to the UNFCCC, which is the UN framework for combating climate change. And that's anyone who up to the age of 35. That's defined as a young person under the UN. And we're all volunteering and we're all spread out across the globe. And we follow policies such as adaptation and mitigation, which is sort of traditionally covered in the framework, but also more thematic themes such as nature, which is what I focus on, and topics like human rights and oceans and indigenous rights. So we cover quite a wide spread of things. And sort of what YOUNGO is aiming to do is influence global climate policy. So on the scale of the international and COPs, get meaningful youth representation in COP processes and decision-making processes, as well as collaborate with other young people across the world and ensure that we get knowledge transfer and learn from like, what are other people doing? And what can we take that other people are doing well and put it in our local context? So what do we do in Nature Working Group? So obviously, you know, it says it on the tin, but we focus on nature, so biodiversity and ecosystems. And we sort of have running themes that we continuously advocate for, such as nature-based solutions. So sort of how do we tackle the climate crisis using nature and working within and with nature, as well as ongoing negotiations that are related to nature. So this year, COP30 will obviously have a big focus on biodiversity, being held in Belém in the Amazon. And sort of initiatives that have been coming up recently are stuff like the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, which is a market mechanism where where countries and investors invest money to try and save tropical forests, as well as other initiatives related to forest finance and nature-based solutions in mitigation and adaptation. And the sort of three main things we do, sort of pillars of action, is that we track policies. So every time a COP releases a document or negotiations happen, they'll release draft documents, and we go through them and essentially highlight, okay, where is nature mentioned? What are parties saying about nature? And how can we get parties to advocate for more ambitious policies for nature and climate? We obviously do advocacy, so obviously in spaces like COPs and big multilateral fora, as well as sort of on more national level as well. And lastly, we do campaigns. So sort of things like this in a way, sort of awareness raising and sort of knowledge transfer and just getting the word out to other young people on topics related to nature. And those sort of three things follow quite, they quite intertwine quite well. And one of the big things we do each year, we've just about finishing, I think this year, is our Biodiversity Academy, which on this year's focused on nature finance, and hopefully will happen every year, where we get young people from both the global north and the global south as speakers. So, you know, if you're working on something related to nature, perhaps reach out to us. So just a little bit of context for like how the UNFCCC works. And you'll probably hear like similar things from the other speakers today. But COP, which stands for Conference of the Parties, is like the big main decision-making body, which everyone hears about. You know, there's COP30 coming up in Berlin, and that's where parties and world leaders and scientists will all, and civil society will get together, and parties will negotiate, parties being countries, countries will negotiate on draft text and be like, we want to remove this, we want to add this. And civil society will often be there advocating in outside of these negotiation rooms, but also as the YOUNGO, as the official youth constituency, we get right to speak in official negotiations after parties. And there's also the CMA and the CMP, which happen alongside COP, and that's for the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement, respectively. And then as well as big COPs, there's also what we call SBs, which stand for subsidiary bodies. They sort of lay a lot of the scaffolding before COP. They happen early in the year, and they happen around June in Bonn in Germany. And sort of there's a lot more technical discussions about the nitty-gritty of, okay, like the words we have in this text and the agenda for COP, and they sort of pave the road for COP. And obviously parties need to sign up to the Paris Agreement and the Kyoto Protocol. It's not something that's it was agreed and legally binding. No, like countries need to ratify it, and countries also have the right to leave the Paris Agreement, as we've seen with the US recently with Donald Trump. Okay, so yeah, just to touch a bit more about COP itself. In COPs, you have an agenda, and parties will go through each of the items, and they'll either agree, disagree, discuss, and they'll sort of work off the back of previous COPs. So each year there's a COP. We're COP30. The first COP was obviously a long time ago, before I was born. Yeah, sort of the aim of COP is to create ambitious sort of climate action and ensure that we're working towards 1.5 degrees, limiting global greenhouse gases, and ensuring that we have adaptation. So what's going on at the moment in related to what we're doing as YOUNGO and also COP30? So we have a range of different topics we cover here. So we do everything from social media on the right here to doing submissions. So we have the Global Youth Statement, which we as Nature Working Group have sort of inputted to and written policy demands all about nature and climate. And then we also work on more, I guess, thematic sort of, thematic initiatives such as the Tropical Forest Forever Facility and the GGA, as well as working cross-constituency with Youth for Nature and GYBN. And yeah. So thank you, everyone. That was really like quick snapshot of what we do as YOUNGO Nature Working Group. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, if you have any questions about how you want to join YOUNGO, things like that, also feel free to ask. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Harvey, for that brief presentation, and we'll go to the specifics during the panel discussion, I guess. Now with that, I'll invite the next speaker, Mr. Mark Racchino from Global Youth Biodiversity Network. Mark Racchino is the Capacity Building, Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Coordinator of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, GYBN, and formerly served as Protected Area Management Specialist at the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. He holds master's degree in environmental management and tropical marine ecosystem management. Mark's works bridges science and tradition to advance participatory, inclusive, and youth-driven biodiversity governance. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Jonathan. And if you would kindly please share my screen.
Yes, we'll do that from our end now.
And let me just also close my video for now because of my internet is a bit slow.
Sure, that works.
Perfect. While Jonathan is fixing on the slide, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark, and I'm calling in from the Philippines. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's an honor to represent GYBN, or the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and to share how young people across the globe are weaving meaningful transformation for biodiversity. So you can see on the slide now, Weaving Futures with the Youth captures both the spirit and the practice of Gibbon's work. Weaving reminds us that transformation doesn't happen in isolation. It's built thread by thread through relationships, learning, and what Dr. Suresh mentioned. It's built through collective action. And transformation is not only about technical and policies, but also it includes cultural and relational, which Jonathan mentions on um, the UNESCO heritage part. So basically, Gibbon's doing changing how we think, we decide, and act as part of nature. And through Gibbon, youth have been bringing this transformation into the biodiversity governance, ensuring that policies under the Convention on Biological Diversity, which I could show later on, truly reflects the voices, needs, and aspirations of young people. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I continue my presentation, I would briefly want to take this moment to first express my deep gratitude to all the members of the network who have been continuously showing up for biodiversity with limitless dedication. So what you can see on the screen and these beautiful faces represent not only Gibbon's projects and programs, but young people, young leaders who have planted mangroves, organized campaigns, joined consultations, facilitated learning circles, and built bridges between nature, communities, institutions, and policies. And I'm presenting now coming from a place of gratitude from their efforts and from their passion that helps nature and people all together. Next slide, please. Okay, just a very brief intro on Gibbon. So you can read more of who Gibbon is in our website, gybn.org. But basically, Gibbon is the global coalition of young people and youth organizations united by one vision. It is to live in harmony with nature. So we work to lead, support, and accelerate a just and equitable transition toward that future. And Gibbon is also the official international coordination platform for youth participation under the Convention on Biological Diversity, or the CBD. This means that Gibbon represent the collective voice of young people in biodiversity policy processes, ensuring that our perspectives are recognized and reflected in the global decisions. And what you can see on the right on the circles are the pillars of Gibbon and how we work. So there's knowledge and capacity building, there's advocacy and campaigns, there's mobilization and alliance building, there's community building and groundwork. And at the center is the Gibbon's values that we adhere to in everything that we do, which includes collaboration, inclusion, equity, and respect for all life forms, among many other things. So that's just a very brief description on who Gibbon is, but you can learn more of us on the website. So just to also kind of like provide you a context and to understand where youth and Gibbon fit into the global biodiversity movement, I'm showing you this on the slide, the three interconnected spaces, the CBD, the COP, and the GBF. So basically, the CBD, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, is the multilateral treaty which is adopted in 1992 and has basically three main objectives. These are conserving biodiversity, using its components sustainably, and sharing the benefits of genetic resources fairly and equitably. And the CBD kind of like acts as the central international agreement that guides how governments, organizations, civil societies, communities work together to protect and restore biodiversity. And Gibbon is officially recognized as the global coordination platform for youth for participating under this CBD. So we help connect young people to the global decision-making processes under the CBD. And COP16, Conference of Parties 16. So this is actually one of the good milestone of COP in terms of biodiversity, because it's the first COP where we are now able to see the implementation of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So Basically, last year in Cali, Colombia, where COP16 happened, all governments kind of like reviewed how far they have come in implementing the framework, aligning this as well with their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and to strengthen as well on their monitoring and resource mobilization part. So I won't be discussing the NBSAPs or the National Biodiversity Strategies and Action Plan, but later on I'll share you a reference that you can look into if you wanted to learn more of the NBSAPs, because Gibbon also created a guidebook if you wanted to be more engaged with your government with the NBSAP as well. And last on the screen is the KMGBF, or the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So basically this is the global agreement kind of like adapted at COP15 in 2022 in both Kunming and Montreal. That's why it's Kunming-Montreal. And it's actually kind of like a roadmap to achieve a world living in harmony with nature by 2050. And the GBF has 4 long-term goals and 23 action targets. And I'll show you later Target 22 and how Target 22 is very important on our discussion today for the UN Day. Okay, so can we go to the next slide, please? Right. So what does Gibbon do in terms of joining the COP or the Conference of Parties? So so the COP is kind of like where global decisions are made for the future in terms of biodiversity, and this is also the space where Gibbon sees the space for not just for negotiations but also for advocacy, collaboration, and transformation. And at COP, youth are very much engaged in different levels, multiple interconnected layers of different activities from advocacy, communication, coordination, and community. So basically, COP is a very busy event where there are many delegates, and one of that are the youth. And Gibbon is coordinating those kind of events in terms of the Conference of Parties. So basically, Gibbon helps coordinate if there are activities on interventions, lobbying, for example, tracking negotiations, press conferences with the youth, side events, youth spaces like Youth Pavilion and Youth Summit. So those kind of many activities. And as you can see at the graph there, the Venn diagram there, at the center is the coordination where Gibbon role is very crucial to make sure that the coordination is kind of like working properly so that the youth activities are moving as one, and we have kind of like one kind of like voice altogether in terms of pushing forward youth priorities on the spaces that we are attending to. So that's how important the coordination of Gibbon is on convention on parties. But before COP, so you can see on the right, there are national consultations. So we also do that. So before going to COP, we do national consultations and regional consultations, making sure that youth priorities are grounded to realities on the ground. And these are actually from the youth on themselves. And then we write them up into youth priorities, and then we send that youth priorities to parties, for example, to gather support. And at the bottom, you can see Gibbon position. So we also, after all of these consultations, we kind of like share the positions to the youth network so they could know. And right now, it's on Substa 27. So our policy team is in Panama right now for the Substa, which actually push forwards again youth priorities in terms of biodiversity and meaningful engagement of the youth. And on the right is just one way of doing the consultation. So we do thematic area consultations as well. So for example, what I'm showing you is the sustainable wildlife management consultation for the youth, which also part of youth priorities, for example, on COP. So just to share with you some of the efforts in terms of COP. Next slide, please. Right, so just a very quick overview on what happened at COP in numbers. So for example, at COP16, we have 117 youth actively following and engaging the negotiations. So these are from different regions of the network, from Africa to Asia to Latin America, Europe, North America. So those are different memberships who are actually very active in monitoring the negotiations and making sure that the priorities are also kind of like looked into on those um, negotiations as well. And then we have a very dedicated policy team. So there are 13 youth trained policy team who kind of like are kind of like making sure that they follow technical negotiations, they craft interventions, and they provide analysis for broader youth delegation. So basically, we understand what is happening in COP because of this youth policy team. So they're the ones who are actually making sure that we understand and the network understand what is happening in the negotiations as well. And then these are all other numbers as well. So there are 20 interventions delivered. We have 21 COP16 decisions influenced. We have more than 24 chapters engaged in the NBSEP. So you can look into more of the details of this into the youth outcomes, which is also in our website. So you can look into the youth outcomes of COP16 in our website. So this is free accessible for anyone who wants to read how youth was able to work on the priorities at the Conference of Parties last year at Cali, Colombia. Next slide, please. Right. Okay. So I'm basically highlighting Target 22 from the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Target because I think this is one of the most important wins of the youth and civil society in the Kunming Montreal Biodiversity Framework. So it's a powerful statement actually that inclusion, equity, and justice are not just about values, but also and on obligations within the biodiversity governance. So basically, Target 22 calls on the government to ensure full, equitable, inclusive, and gender-responsive participation in biodiversity decision making. So you can see that in the screen. And I highlighted the youth there as well because this is one of the very big milestone for Global Youth Biodiversity Networkers as well because youth are explicitly mentioned in the target, which mentions that youth are kind of like a stakeholder, but also has meaningful participation on the framework in itself. So but again, this recognition didn't happen overnight. So this is actually the fruit of patience and perseverance of the network and its members over a decade of youth organization, advocacy, and collaboration with other allies and partners throughout the convention and conference of parties. Basically, I wanted to highlight this as well because this is one of the good example that youth and young people are not only beneficiaries of actions, but are co-decision makers, stewards, and co-implementers of multilateral agreements, including, for example, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And in many ways, this target also kind of like captures the title of this presentation, where weaving futures with youth truly means being inclusive and equitable, having the path for that for people and planet. Next slide, please. Okay, so those are the policy spaces that GYBN is active on. But aside from that, beyond policy spaces, GYBN also do capacity building and community building. So GYBN runs a global, regional, and national, both online and in-person learning pathways to strengthen young people's understanding on biodiversity policy, advocacy, what does meaningful youth engagement means, and of course, community action. So on the screen, you see a lot of online sessions that we're doing on different thematic areas as well, depending on the context of the chapters. And also last year, we are able to do the International Youth Conference on Biodiversity in Japan, where we kind of like invited different young people in different regions of the world to also kind of like decide on priorities for COP16. Next slide, please. And also, we just initiated a co-learning space for the fellows of GYBN. So basically, we call it the Fellows Learning Circle, where it creates a platform for sharing of learning and insights from different chapters, fellows, and projects as well. So we had one last week with the fellows, and this kind of like provides the space where it cultivates the global community of practice while also learning and making sure that information and experiences are not just centralized, but also shared to different chapters and networks. Next slide. And okay, so given also support local youth actions, there are a lot of activities at different sites, for example, either in protected areas and also on some of heritage. We have members working on heritage sites as well. And Given are also supporting them through fellowships and seed funding. So you can see on the screen below, for example, these are the current fellows that we have from last year, implementing projects on their own communities. And we are also supporting chapters for the NBSUP engagement. As I mentioned, you can check in our website the guide, the Youth and NBSUP handbook on how you would want to be involved in the NBSUP with your local government, national government as well. And last that we just kind of like currently launch and ending this December is the Nature Culture Fellowship. So it's kind of like intergenerational and cultural transformation fellowships with Kinship. So we are partnering with Kinship on this one. And this fellowship emphasizes that culture and relational dimension of biodiversity are also working through different spaces, including policies, for example. And this fellowship allows to explore how art, storytelling, and different knowledge systems can bridge generations and foster deeper connections with nature. So that's part of the given as well that we have been doing with the fellows at the moment. Next slide, please. Okay. This is I'm almost finished. And again, I also wanted to emphasize how our work kind of like creates synergy with the 2030 agenda on the sustainable development. So basically, what the youth are doing now are actually connected both in the KMGBF and the SDG goals that we are having. And given serves as kind of like a bridge and making sure that linkages are visible between the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. So you can see at the bottom right, we kind of like ask our members what they have been doing in terms of biodiversity. So I'm not sure if it's super clear right now on the screen, but you can see that youth are doing so many diverse work in terms of biodiversity and nature and the SDGs. So basically, they kind of like contribute to the targets for almost of the SDGs and the KMGBF targets as well. And most prominent would be on contributions to climate, life on land, below water, inclusive institutions, and partnerships. And basically, the GBF and the SDG are kind of like working hand in hand together to make sure that these transformations are also seen in a tangible, community-driven progress towards the global goals. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. I just wanted to share this and also provide emphasis on how GYBN is doing its work from capacity building towards action. So basically, this is kind of like our roadmap that we follow. So we do capacity building and then consultations and then advocacy, partnerships and outreach, and then action. So basically, that's how we kind of like look into empowerment and mobilization of youth so that they could be active and push forward their voices and agendas and priorities as well into the spaces that they need to. Next slide. And that's it. And if you're interested on joining the network, you can visit the Facebook and Instagram. And also, you can visit our Telegram and website. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing this screen.
Thank you, Mark, for your insights and how GYBN rallies up youth for biodiversity conservation. Next, we have Ms. Chehek Bilgi from UNCCD Youth Caucus. Ms. Chehek is a digital advocate and a cinematographer working at the intersection of climate justice, gender equality, land, and sustainable development. With over a decade of experience engaging in UN processes and global advocacy platforms, Chehek combines a deep understanding of policy with a creative approach to communication. Her work is grounded in the belief that strategic policy advocacy paired with impactful storytelling can drive meaningful transformative change. Over to you, Mr. Chehek.
Hello, thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you for having me here. Just when maybe mispronunciation, I go by Chehek, and I hope you guys can hear me because I'm in a space which is little louder. So anyway, I'll just share the slide, and I'll be turning off my camera so that in case there is okay, I hope you can see my slide. So I'm, as Jonathan rightly mentioned, I work as a cinematographer, filmmaker, and a digital advocate. Basically, it's the same in different lines. But I'm also part of UNCCD Youth Caucus, and I'm going to just share a bit about what UNCCD Youth Caucus is. I'm not able to change this. Jonathan,
Yeah, should we share it from our end?
for you to share screen.
Okay.
Yes, that'll be good. Okay.
And Rizin, could you please
Okay.
share the, yeah.
Sure, I'll do that. Give me a minute.
Okay, I think this is mine, right? I'm able to change. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. Sorry about that. Okay,
Okay.
so the UNCCD Youth Caucus is basically a formal and dedicated youth engagement mechanism of the United Nations Combat for Desertification, which is the UNCCD. So we are basically the youth constituency of the UNCCD, official youth constituency of the UNCCD. And the whole idea of UNCCD Youth Caucus is to have a lot of youth engagement in specific areas like desertification or land degradation. You know, student people working in places related to land, basically. But as already Harvey and Mark also mentioned, we are also a similar kind of we also have the similar structure, but the more focus is on land and desertification. So the with a lot of importance of youth engagement and their different perspective of sustainable development, the UNCCD Youth Caucus was officially adopted by the parties in September 2029 during the COP14. So I will also get into the COP structure. We also have different COP structures as well, but the UNCCD Youth Caucus came in light in September 2019 during the COP14, which was, I think, happened in India. And the platform is mostly related to youth involvement in combating land desertification, as I mentioned. So the vision of UNCCD Youth Caucus, it aligns with UNGCY as well, and it seeks to build a world that has different principles of solidarity, justice, diversity, equity, universality, inclusion of human rights, and integrity of the planet. So we strive to have more and more youth working in this space, and that they get platform to talk about these issues which would otherwise not. So UNCCD becomes a very niche in that way because we also focus a lot in land. But of course, it is all interlinked. You can't, it's interlinked with climate, it's interlinked with biodiversity. So we have three main objectives. It's very similar to what Mark and Javi also mentioned, capacity building, youth empowerment and action. So we do a lot of capacity building workshops. We collaborate with a lot of different organizations, youth constituencies and different youth organizations as well in different regions working in related to land and desertification. And with these collaborations, we try to get in, because land and desertification is one topic which usually gets underlined in a lot of discussions, but there is also no other way to completely not talk about it as well. So with these collaboration, what happens is we get a lot of people who come with what they are already facing and the kind of solutions they are working on during and as part of their involvement when it comes to land and desertification, and which also leads us to youth empowerment, which offers a platform to for a lot of youth to come and join and lead a lot of different innovations as well. So the capacity building and even workshops and collaboration helps you to also be a part of different innovations and different sorry about that, 1 second. Yeah, so yes, and I hope you can hear me. I think it's a network connection. Okay. So with this also we have different, we also give a lot of implementation of on storytelling, arts and visual communications as well. Because the thing is that what we believe is there are a lot of stories which are driven in different regions of people working in land and land degradation, and those stories do not come out very easily. So what we also did recently, and it's still under view, is we launched a campaign called 30 Seconds of Impact, where we had a lot of youth telling their stories in 30 seconds. So it was an Instagram campaign, but this is a campaign which was focused on understanding what are the challenges people face when it comes to land degradation, and what are the solutions people are working on, especially youth are working on when it comes to this thing. So this 30 Impact of campaign is still under, we are launching it soon, because we did not expect that we would get around 65 to 70 applicants who would give in, and we just want to give a proper justice to all those stories. So there are some sort of initiatives we do when we are trying to do capacity building, youth empowerment, and different, like we will also speak about Youth for Water grant. That's another grant that is launched by UNCCD with another organization, which is giving out grants for people to work in this region as well. So we have different coordination team. If anybody would want to join, we have regional working groups, that is Asia, Africa, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and the Caribbean, Europe, North America, and Middle East. And then we have different thematic groups as well. So of course, all the regional groups work in the thematic groups as well, but then there are also specific thematic groups if somebody wants to just have their expertise on gender, land tenure, sustainable land management, restoration, peace and security, food security, and agriculture. So with these thematic groups, we have the stakeholder engagement, like every other has like a global focal point, partnership leads, communication lead, policy engagement lead. And this is what basically forms the whole team for us. And we have a lot of members who have now joined in from different regional groups and different thematic groups, which are now working towards land degradation idea. So the youth engagement in UNCCD Caucus, the whole vision of UNCCD vision is to achieving land degradation neutrality by 2030, and all the engagement are built on this principle and inclusion and more meaningful participation for the LDN, which is one of the main visions of UNCCD. So all the representation at the COP also is very similar to the UNFCCC or the process of the COP processes. And we had our previous COP in Riyadh, that was COP16, and after that we are now going to be having CRIC, which is very similar to the SVs that Harvey spoke about. So we would be having it in Panama from 1st to 5th of December this year, and the whole point of so in CRIC also, it is a very technical and implementation side based convention, and the discussions and the outcomes of the CRIC are fed directly into policy decisions adopted for the next COP. So the next COP is going to happen COP17 in Mongolia next year in August, and it is also a space for youth and civil society organizations to present their case studies and their community experiences, bringing to ground realities to global framework. So the CRIC, if I have to give a more detailed information about CRIC, is the CRIC established by the Conference of Parties to review how host countries implement the UNCCD, particularly their commitments to combat desertification, land degradation, and drought. And it is also a platform for countries, civil societies, and youth to discuss progress, share their lessons, and identify the challenges in the meeting that targets to the land degradation neutrality (LDN) by 2030. So the committee reviews national reports submitted by the parties. They evaluate trends, and they also propose recommendation for better implementation and cooperation. So this is what the whole structure of the CRIC is, and that would lead up to that CRIC will also be reviewing whatever reviews were there for COPs, or whatever outcomes were there for COP16. So in COP16 last year in Riyadh that we had, that was tracking the progress of land restoration, drought resilience, and strengthening multi-stakeholder engagement, including youth contribution. So that is what we had last year, and that will also be reviewed this year at the CRIC. So the CRIC COP16 outcomes of last year and the coming up COP, which would be next year in Mongolia. So all these would be all reviews would be happening between different parties. And also CRIC and COP are also the platforms where different youth and youth organizations, they do their interventions, they give their statements, they also do a lot of side events where they would collaborate with different organizations, they would collaborate with different UN constituencies, and they would come up with more interactive way of conveying what kind of issues and what kind of solutions, because we just don't only focus on the issues, but we also focus on the solutions. Because I know every time we all speak about the issues, but there are also a lot many youth who have success stories as well that comes out. So these side events help us to bring that out. And as I already mentioned, that we also give a lot of emphasis on storytelling, art, and media and culture. So a lot of our side events includes those aspects as well, because since I also come from a communication background, I also personally feel that a human emotion has more weightage than the statistics. So that is also one of the things we try to highly involve in during our COP processes as well. It's not just for our social media campaigns, but it's also trying to involve it during our COP and also for the CRIC process. Then capacity building and leadership development, as I mentioned already, that workshops, advocacy, policy engagement, interventions, and side events, and different collaborations of UNCCD and UN agencies, they happen in between the UNCCD processes, and there's a lot of cross-regional exchange and peer learnings as well. You draft, so as I mentioned about the COP and the CRIC, so we do have a U draft that we presently make a national draft as well, and that is something that we try to present at different COPs and or the Global Land Platform of CRIC. So in COP16, we did give our Global Focal Point Juliet had given a youth statement as well. That was whole of the review of whatever happened during COP16 in Riyadh last year. And these statements are usually, they prioritize land rights, gender equality, nature-based solutions, and making sure that all these areas are taken into consideration when we are trying to bring in our bringing our statement in front of in front basically. So there are other other advocacy tools as well. I think most of them that I already mentioned. We do a lot of cross strengthening synergies with YOUNGO, the CYMG, MGCY, and other youth constituency that fall under the open conventions. Also, we try to make sure that we try to include all of these different Rio conventions in some of our side events or maybe capacity building workshops that we conduct online. And all the regional and thematic groups, we try to make sure that at least we have one capacity building workshop in at least 2 months internally, because I know we all can't meet, but we do that online. So every 2 months, either of the work group is making sure that there is some sort of capacity building workshop and there's some sort of collaboration between different UN constituencies and the Rio Convention happening, so that, as I said, you cannot just talk about land, or you cannot just talk about climate and just ignore land, or just ignore climate, or just ignore biodiversity. They all are interlinked, so it has to happen in together all the time. So of course we do focus also only on land, but we also make sure that there is this whole synergy and whole collaboration happening between. And as I mentioned about storytelling initiatives and awareness, so that's there. Contribution to Agenda 2030 are we directly contribute to SDG 13, 15, SDG 5, SDG 4, SDG 17, SDG 1 and 2. So these are more or less our main focus areas as well when it comes to our Agenda 2030. And the way forward is that we have a lot of mentorship and technical support for young leaders who are working in land, and we also have a lot of we support a lot of youth working in different regions for youth-led projects on land and anything related to climate and sustainability. And we do also make sure that through film, media, storytelling, or different campaigns, social media campaigns, or smaller reels, we try to make sure that we are able to tell different kind of stories of youth working in their local communities about try to basically showcase their work as much as we can through these platforms as well. So that is again not only a social media campaign strategy, but that also happens in our different side events during the COP and during CRIP. So yeah, that's about it. You can find more information about, and the way to join us is by you can go to UNCCD.org, and then we give you an application to join the UNCCD Youth Caucus, and then you can choose if you want to join a regional group, or you want to join a thematic group, or you want to be part of both. That's also completely fine. You can easily take in, and you can follow us on Instagram as well as UNCCD Youth Caucus. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jahek, for the presentation on CCD and the work of Youth Caucus. I think now we open up for the panel discussion, which will be moderated by Dr. Madhumita Panigrahi, who is the Program Coordinator of WIC2C. And the theme of this panel discussion will be Role of Youth in Achieving Agenda 2030, the Climate Biodiversity, Land and Heritage Conservation. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to all the speakers. There was a wonderful presentation, and I see there are some of the questions which have already been put out. I think it will be a very general question for all of you to answer, so I'll just ask in the order of presentation to answer these questions. So most of the question, generally, I think people are not writing, but the question in mind will be how can they join these groups? So starting from Harveet, and then to Mark, and then to Chehek, if you can please answer.
Yeah, sure. For YOUNGO at least, How it works, if you go on the website, there's a Google form you can press, and you just fill in your details. It's really easy, and you can say what thematic groups you want to join. So if you want to join the nature working group, just click that box for nature. You can join as many groups as you want. There's no limit. You don't need to be an expert. And then after that, you'll get an email to join an onboarding call. And once you've done the onboarding, then you're part of the group, and you'll get the regular emails from the focal points. You can join working group activities, things like that. Like, it was quite quick. I joined YOUNGO last winter, I think, and I became like policy lead. I think perhaps in July of this year. So like, you can like, really, it is like, commitment is completely up to you. If you want to just be like, follow along with developments, you can totally do that. If you want to get really involved, you can also do that. Like, it's completely up to you. And yeah, you don't need to be an expert at all. I was not an expert in policy until this year when I got in the policy rabbit hole. But yeah, I would encourage everyone to just, be involved.
Yeah. Harveet, if you can post any links so that people can just follow it sooner.
Yeah, sure. I'll put it on in the chat.
Yes. Mark, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, thank you. I'll also post the links later on the chat, but similar with Harveet, you can also look into our website. There's also a registration form there if you wanted to be part of the network. But also we have Asia chapter and we have India chapter. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jonathan is also a member of GYBN India. I'm volunteering Jonathan now. Definitely you can talk to me, or I'm not sure if Jonathan would be willing. You can also send him a message if you're interested in joining the network. I will put our capacity building email in the chat as well if you wanted to just send us a message. And if you have other questions as well, please feel free to send us a message if you wanted to learn more on what we do and how we do it and how you would want to be meaningfully involved in all of our work. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Chenek?
Yeah, as I already mentioned, I will share the link as well for UNCCD Youth Caucus. And when you go to the link to UNCCD Youth Caucus, you can find this join now, and you can select that link. And through that, you'll be able to just register, and you can also showcase which areas of interest you want to get into a regional working group or thematic, or maybe both. So you can easily sign up, and then you will, once it is approved, you will be signed up for the mailing list reserve as well. So you keep getting emails which will have all the relevant information and engagement information that is required on monthly basis. So you can choose what areas you want to get involved at, and then there would be links to submit forms and everything. So it's pretty straightforward. If you go to the link, once you join and once you get accepted, you will be in the mail list of, and then you will have a lot of engagement opportunities coming through email every month. And then we also have an onboarding call that happens. Mostly that will happen after CRIC now, because it's quite tight because of CRIC. But yeah, so that's it.
Okay, so summarizing, if anybody wants to join this group, there is no need of any specialization. You should have a motive to join and contribute to these initiatives. And I guess there will be some mark for the age, as this is for youth. So I guess maybe up till 35 years, if not, or maybe 24 years, till people can join in. I think more information will be coming in once you go through their web links. There are certain questions I think everyone of the speaker may like to answer. So there's a question from Kishan Raj. I'm from Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, a UNESCO World Living Heritage Site, but in surrounding of my university, some underdeveloped people, communities, and villages. How can I work for them? I want to contribute for environmental science, but I don't have much knowledge. I think in general perspectives, if we do, then many of the youth would like to contribute in some or the other way, but don't know how should they approach. Since you have been working in all these youth groups, can probably we will start with Mark. Can you say that how we can put up efforts in a very local level near to where we stay?
Yes, thank you. perhaps I could also connect you to the chapter that's involved on the region or on the national level. But basically, this is kind of like a very tricky question actually, because there's this passion to help communities, but at the end of the day, you would ask yourself, do they need help in the first place? So that's kind of like a good reflection to sit down first. But since you also mentioned this, that you don't have enough knowledge, perhaps I could maybe suggest to read more and learn more of the things you wanted to know first, and also learn more about the communities that you wanted to help, so that you're able to understand the context of the setting of the communities and the villages that you want to work with. And again, there are many platforms and many youth network that you can talk to help you with this one. And of course, the process of talking to the communities as well, and making sure that you are going there to help, and really make sure that the help that they needed are kind of like meaningfully acknowledged as well. So just a very quick one. I don't want to go into super details of it, but definitely you can talk to us and just send us a message. And Kishan, Raj. So yeah, thank you.
No, it's a very good suggestion, that whether they need help, and if they do, then in what kind, and whether we are capable of that kind of help, and if yes, then whom to contact to. So that's a very good answer, Mark. Would Harveet, would you like to add on to this?
So I didn't quite catch. Were you asking me? Is it me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I would say, yeah, definitely the local is important, because that's where you feel the impacts of, climate, nature. Everything happens on a local scale. There's always some way to help, and I think sort of talking to people, having that honest conversation, sort of like how can you best support people? Sort of what are the pertinent issues in your local community, and how you can fill in the gap. Obviously, it can be more difficult if you don't have knowledge. I would definitely recommend, like Mark said, reading up. I think sort of places like even the internet, LinkedIn's also a good place for sort of finding people who work in spaces who are similar to you, like the biodiversity, climate, land space, and seeing what their opinions are, especially if anyone's interested in policy. I would definitely recommend that. In terms of day-to-day actions, like Mark said, youth groups are great. And sort of, yeah, identifying what resources do you have, what connections do you have, and sort of the logistics of it, I think, are very key. Because everyone can have impact. It's just unfortunately resources aren't always there. So I think having a community is really great. I think, especially in the whole environmental space, it can feel very sort of, I guess there are lots of ups and downs with environmental action, especially on the local level, I found. But having a supportive community who are with it, who are in it with you, really helps, I think, with that. Because, this person might know something about this, or this person might have a different perspective about this. And it just helps sort of bring a stronger youth coalition in. But yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Harveet. Another question is Dr. by Ravi Kant. He's saying how to collaborate as an individual with this forum. I guess they have already posted some of their links, and you can join in and ask more. For the other question, Krishna Raj, again, the same person. I write Hindi poetries for conservation of environment, how to use that in global forums. Probably check if you could give some inputs in this regard. Of course, it's not in that sense of cinematography, but maybe how they can project their creativity into these kind of environmental goals.
Yes, of course. We do have another poet in our UNCCD Youth Caucus as well. She's also based in Amritsar from India, and she also writes a lot of poetry, and she comes to these global platforms to also present. So one is I can help you in getting in touch with her. I think she would be a really correct. She would be a correct person to help you guide through how she found her way to it. Because the only thing with when it comes to films and art or any sort of art form is that it is very difficult to navigate in this process. Because but the good thing is also that these processes are now taking in these forms of information as well. Initially it was very policy and policy based, but now they are also encouraging a lot of art and communications and different kind of art forms to come in this space as well. So the only slight challenge that I feel here, because I also took some time to navigate through this when I was trying to get in films, was that the small challenge is how to navigate through this process. So what I did was, what I can tell you is that when I started becoming member of different youth constituencies, and I started getting involved in their communication groups and processes. And then slowly, when I got opportunities to go through these platforms, is when I started filming different video content by it, and then presenting it to different organizations. So that's how it happened. The transition happened very slowly. But when it comes to poet or poetry, now that I've seen that there are very few people, but they are doing it really well. So I can leave my email ID to you, and then I can connect you with that with Parneet. Her name is Parneet, and then maybe she can also help you guide.
Okay, you are in mute.
Yeah, I
Harveet,
said. Yeah.
I think Harveet had a comment to make. His
Yeah, I
hand is
think
raised.
Chahek is done. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Harmeet, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to build on what Jack said, very beautifully put. I think from my perspective as a young scientist, obviously data and science is important for policy in these spaces, but I think equal importance should also be placed on the arts and sort of storytelling and music and sort of human way and human connections to climate and biodiversity and the environment in general, because that's how we sort of, I guess, really start to care about these things. It's all great, like coming up with statistics and facts and being like X amount of people affected by this storm, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like a picture, a movie, a piece of music speaks so much louder than those numbers ever can. So I think it is difficult. From my experience, there's not that many people working in this sort of space. There are definitely more now. It's still tough, but definitely like don't give up on it. If that's what you want to do, just like follow that, I'd say. But yeah, just words of encouragement.
Yes, that's a good example. Mark, would you like to add into this?
Yes, thank you so much, Harvit and Shekar. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but yeah, I think there's an emerging focus now on arts and storytelling as a complementary efforts towards biodiversity conservation. So I think at least for Gibbon side, we are also doing that now, and we're creating kind of like a space for people who would want to do their creative kind of like ways of conservation as well. So my suggestion probably is to maybe join Gibbon India. This is a very straightforward suggestion. Sorry. Because on the networks, for example, on the national chapters, there are opportunities that we give. Like, for example, the Nature Culture Fellowship, which is ending this December, is kind of like the platform that you need. This platform is actually allowing you to write poems and stories and create artworks. And we gave seed funding for you to do that in your own community. So it's ending now, but we are hoping maybe to have that as well continued in the next year, but we are still looking for fundings as well. But yeah, so there are opportunities like that where you can really put your heart into it and make also an impact on biodiversity. So,
Yes, Mark, the Nature Culture Fellows was, I thought, I think most of the people here will agree that it looks like a very wonderful and unique fellowship. And if any updates regarding this, please feel free to make us aware, and we will try to circulate best among our groups. Now, since we are in the topic of presentation and creativity, the question is again to Chehek. In your experience as a cinematographer, which aspects of these issues do you believe require greater visibility or more nuanced representation in mainstream media? Is check there? Okay. Then we can come back to that later. There is another one question which was quite unique.
Yeah, that's just joined back. She just joined back.
Hmm. Okay, there's a question by Siddharth. We have another 3 minutes to discuss further, so we'll take probably another one more question after this. So, Siddharth is saying, as a young belonging to the geospatial technology sector, how can we contribute, establish, or create a forum in terms of developing a synergy between technology application, reach to the grassroots level, sustainable natural resource management? This is a technical aspect to it, and I don't know. Maybe Harpreet, do your group have certain experts or people who will be working on the technical aspect of this?
I'm going to be honest. No, not as far as I'm aware. We're a very diverse group of people. Like I'm from biology background, but some people I know have come from like comms and marketing backgrounds and all sorts of degrees. That's a very interesting question. How can we contribute? And I think, yeah, it's an important thing. Obviously, geospatial technology is very important when it comes to things like participatory mapping and on the local level, sort of developing technology for a changing environment. And that's something that's come up increasingly in discussions. I'm going to be honest, I'm not an expert on this topic, so I'm just trying to think. I think part of it is sort of reaching out to those on the grassroots level and asking them, okay, like from your side as someone as a technical expert, what do they need from you? Like have these conversations with people and, you know, sort of the big ways you can contribute is designing things that are needed by people on the ground. Because obviously policy is one side of the conversation, but effective implementation of that policy is the other side of the coin. So, you know, people with skills like you are important to ensure that implementation is effective, it's just, and it can actually catalyze change. So yeah, my sort of points would be discuss to people who are on the ground sort of what do they need from their perspective. So like from my background is like farming, so sort of like from that perspective, sort of like climate resilient crops, things like that. And then sort of what can you do is sort of reach out to your network, develop a network of people from different backgrounds you can bring in different things to a project like this. And then also like, I know it's difficult, funding is very little, but you know, it's scarce, it's hard to apply for, especially as young people. But like do try and get some sort of seed funding would be really, really helpful in terms of something like this. But yeah, there's very broad points.
Yes. Mark, do your group have certain people who work exclusively on some geospatial analysis to have some projects related to this?
Thank you. Actually, I'm also looking at the back of my head if I know someone about this, but I can't remember anyone. So probably not to this specific level. So I'm thinking maybe the very thing that I think about is talking to an academe, because this is very technical. So maybe there's an academic institutions within your area that also are interested on this kind of efforts, for example. But there are, if I'm not mistaken, there are already kind of like forums that happen regarding this kind of topic. Like maybe you could look into that as well. Like for example, I think one of the innovative geospatial information applications forum was organized last year by UNESCAP. If I'm not mistaken, there's also kind of like a global forum on Earth observations, which also talk about this kind of activities that you wanted to do. So maybe you can look into that as well and see how, and maybe there are learnings there that you can look into and how you would want to do it in your community as well. On that, on Gibbon's side, just because I don't know really someone, perhaps what we can do is to link you on people. Maybe if we know someone that maybe you could help you connect with specific people as well on this kind of topic you wanted to focus. But basically, probably those people who are in the academic institutions would probably would be able to help you as well on creating that forum. So yeah.
Yes. I'll also say that we don't know whether what kind of studies you are doing right now, whether bachelor's or master's, but having some kind of a projects, fellowships with institutions who work in this aspect will be a good start. I think you might have already tried that by now. I think yes, we are just closing up. I guess Chehek didn't. Could she join us back?
She has joined back.
Okay, I'm not seeing.
Yes,
I
I'm
did.
here.
Okay, check. Check. There was one question which we wanted to ask you, and somewhat it is related now to what the question was last. Is about Youth for Water grant for the community-driven water solutions. Can you tell us a little bit about this grant? Probably some of the people here would be beneficial because it is India would be part of this grant, I guess.
Yes, yes. So the Youth for Water grants, it's launched by UNCCD Youth Caucus in partnership with Protocol Health and Opportunities for Youth. This is to aim support youth-led community-driven water and drought resilience solution across Africa, South Asia, and including India. So they are just like some sort of grants that are given to selected youth working in communities that catalyze change by giving young people real decision power making. Basically, it's not just to only include youth voices, but it is to trust youth to lead. Basically, it's more or less in that format. And these fund it's not just like a funding program, but this program also offers mentorship and implementation support for the teams that get selected. So it could help the youth teams to plan, execute, and sustain their initiative. And the uh, if I have to talk about just what the program is, it is basically to support youth-led community-driven water and drought resilience projects in Africa and South Asia and India. And these yeah, and it has the mentorship and technical support during planning and implementation. And in relevance to India, it addresses the groundwater depletion, erratic rainfall, and access to inequalities. And it also encourages local and low cost innovations, for example, rainwater harvesting, awareness campaigns. So this brings in your different connection of like the advances of SG6 clean water and 13 climate action and 15 life on land. And it also, so it brings in these different SDGs also. So it's not just only on land, but it also talks about climate action and clean water. So this is one of collaboration, which is an ongoing collaboration happening. I think the applications are closed now, but it was open for good 2 months. But I can still check if the applications are still open and if there are any youth organizations or teams who would want to apply. So I've anyway dropped my email ID as well. I can send in more information about this program, and this is going to be a recurring program as well. So it's not just it happened now and it will happen again.
Thank you, Jay. So just I think I guess one last to just summarize everything what we have spoken today. All three groups here they do submit a dialogue or a comment for each of the COP. A statement, a youth statement by each of the group, and I would like all the three speakers to just say very few words in probably 30 seconds about the youth statement which you have sent for the recent COPs and what kind of change do you perceive out of it? Just the last question, just few minutes.
I'm happy to go first.
Yes.
Okay, so very quickly, YOUNGO have the global youth statement released every year before COP. And the 5 key priorities we've identified for this year are science-aligned, nationally determined contributions and a full, fast, fair fossil fuel phase out to reach 1.5. Intergenerational equity and meaningful child and youth inclusion. Third, a global ceasefire and the recognition of military conflict and its climate impacts. 4, climate finance rooted in justice and accessibility. And 5, adaptation as a moral and political priority. And that goes every year. It's really easy to get involved, either as a contributor or facilitator to the process. You have to be a YOUNGO member though. So yeah, please sign up to YOUNGO and also UNCCD Youth Caucus and also GYBN.
Thank you. Mark, would you like to add?
Yes, probably I'm just gonna say 3 youth priorities that we have been advocating ever since I joined GYBN. It's intergenerational equity and full and effective participation of youth. That's the first. And then the second is transformative education. And last is the rights-based approaches for people and nature. So that's what have been rallying all throughout the convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Chehek, would you like to add?
Do you mind repeating the question because I lost you?
I was asking that all of the 3 groups do have youth. I'm forgetting the name of it. Youth statement for each of the COP. So the previous 2 speakers have explained theirs. Would you like to explain yours? Jack, did you understood the question, or should I? Okay. I think anyway we are running.
Sorry. I think it started raining here, so my internet has become really terrible. I couldn't hear your question. If you mind, you can type and I can just type it back. That's
Okay. Okay, I think yes, we will do that. Meanwhile, I will call Varsha to sort of summarize so that we are just end of this webinar today. So please, Varsha, if you can summarize today's webinar.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Mamita. Just to summarize as we conclude this webinar, it's inspiring to reflect on how the United Nations, which is 80 years strong now, continues to unite member states around a shared mission. And through these 3 groups that we have here, representatives of these three groups. And Dr. Suresh Kumar sort of set the stage for the webinar by reminding us how it's important to strengthen multilateral environmental agreements, multilateral cooperation and collective action, and how the World Heritage Convention sort of brings together youth to make to protect both cultural and natural heritage. And Jonathan took us back to the origins of the United Nations and how the Agenda 2030 and the 70 Sustainable Development Goals offer a roadmap for the future. And he also pointed out how the World Heritage Young Professionals Forum and the UNESCO's Global Youth Community are youth initiatives of the World Heritage Convention, and how these platforms show young voices to increasingly shape global heritage conservation. And turning to climate and nature, Harvey introduced us to the YOUNGO, the youth constituency of the UNFCCC. YOUNGO actually sort of provides a platform for young people to influence policy, engage in decision making, and collaborate across regions. And it was inspiring how Harvey highlighted ongoing initiatives of YOUNGO, like the Tropical Forest Forever facility, the Biodiversity Academy, and youth-led campaigns. Mark from the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, GYBN, had one thing to say, how GYBN is actually changing how you think, decide, and act as part of nature. And it was really great to hear how Mark highlighted that the target 22 of the KMGBF, the Convening Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, on intergenerational equity and inclusive participation has been a long-term effort led by youth. Chahek from UNCCD Youth Caucus focused on desertification, land degradation, and how youth have been central to achieving the land degradation neutrality by 2030, and participating officially at COPs, drafting declarations, and running side events. And she also mentioned how through capacity building and storytelling, the Youth Caucus demonstrates the power of youth in shaping policies and driving local action. And the panel discussion sort of had some key insights. First, how you can join these groups, these networks like the GYBN, YOUNGO, or the Youth Caucus, contribute their ideas and participate in their consultations. Second, on the question of helping communities, Mark rightly pointed out how you need to assess their needs first and see how you can meaningfully contribute to them. And and also like how Chehek and Harvey pointed out, how not to underestimate the power of arts through photos, film, or music, which often are more powerful than mere statistics. And yeah, I think that's it. And I hope everybody had something to take away from this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Varsha, for the quick summarization. I would say let's take a group photo. Could you please, everyone, turn on their videos so we can quickly take a snapshot of this webinar. Roy, when you're ready.
Yes, I'm just waiting for everyone to pop their cameras on. Yeah, I've got a lot of screenshots to take. So, all right, everyone say cheese. Hold that smile. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. I'll quickly call upon Meghna Ramesh, part of the capacity building team, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. First of all, I would like to thank Harveet, Mark, and Chehek for accepting our invitation and for joining us today. We're truly grateful to your valuable presence and the presentation that you have shared, which undoubtedly have inspired everyone in the audience, which is evident in the chat box. People are asking for the chance to join this organization. And thank you for showing us the significance of youth in global conservation efforts and for emphasizing how organizations such as YOUNGO, GYBN, and UNCCD provide vital platform for young people engage in policy making, advocacy, and action for the protection of our world. We deeply appreciate your time, effort, and commitment for empowering the next generation. And thank you for being us here. Thank you for your time and thank you for your information that you have shared.
Thank you, Meghna. With that, we conclude the webinar, and the final message what I have to say is that youth are crucial change makers to achieve the Agenda 30, and every action counts. Now, I hope this webinar provided a platform for more fostering connections and networking among the youth platforms, and I'm sure many of these contacts would help in extending and scaling up your works on the ground level. So thank you thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you speakers for your wonderful insights.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Mark. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Before going, can you save the chat?